Australia, the cameras are clearly signposted and the speed of the traffic is noticeably closer to the speed limit. That's Peter's view there. Another one here. We used to have hidden speed cameras signs on the open road. Everyone slowed down in those zones. 5 away from 5 o'clock. Now, this is a recent story that got us quite interested here on the panel. One cafe has advertised for younger staff because they work with us the best, says the owner. And the owner doesn't care if it's illegal. They might have changed, not sure. But the Black Pearl Cafe in Palmerston North had been advertising for workers between the ages of 18 to 27. And a notice in the shop window. This was a stuff story. And the owner told the journalist he knew that it was illegal, but it was not his intention to discriminate against anyone. What do you think around the panel? Is this a sign of ageism, or what do you reckon?
It absolutely is. And, you know, in my business, recruitment, ageism is such a big deal.
It is?
It is huge, particularly in the sort of marketing, comms, advertising area. You know, people say to me, I know I'm not allowed to say this, Cindy, but can't go with anyone old school, can't, you know, they'll make us look old-fashioned, we're not going to be seen as modern and blah, 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 and which I think, you know, I understand it, but it's actually wrong, particularly if the candidate or the waiter has kept themselves modern. You know, and just because you're somewhere between 55 and death doesn't mean that you're not modern. You know, you understand about digital. You can talk to people in the cafes. The age thing assumes that old is not modern and old is not in touch. And I think that's the essence of where it's completely wrong.
It's quite extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, what you were just saying right there, Cindy, is quite something I didn't know. It was quite the big issue. But you work.
It is.
You work on the coalface. You work in the field. What do
I'm
you
too old to actually get a job in the business.
What do you reckon, Mike?
I reckon that this person is, you know, obviously you said I don't care, but it happens all the time and people are less transparent about it, right? I mean, there's all sorts of cases of people that don't get employed for reasons like age and race. I mean, I always go to my supermarket that's owned by a South African guy just around the corner, and 20-30%, I've done a bit of a poll, you know, maybe Polynesians, and there are no Polynesians or Māori employed by this guy. There are maybe 80% of the staff are South Asian. So it's like, well,
is he a white South African or a coloured South African?
But you're extrapolating there.
Five kilometres away, there's a supermarket owned by a Māori that has 30% Māori and Polynesian staff. So, you know, I mean, he's not advertising for just South Asian employees, but he obviously finds them a certain way that he likes to have people on.
So you're saying not only is there ageism, there's also racism and sexism.
Oh, there's all
and
sorts of
employment.
isms.
Yeah, look, there is.
Yeah, there
isms.
And this guy's just been, you know, it's a bit like South Africa with their apartheid laws. It's like, here's our laws, and all of a sudden you become a pariah. And
it's crazy though. I mean, it is absolutely crazy, particularly the ageism thing.
So. In 10 seconds, what do you say in the recruiting firm? What do you say to them? Change your mind. Have a go.
I say, listen, we need to keep our gene pool wide and smart. Let's not keep it too narrow because everything is changing so quickly, and those people that can keep up with the change are the ones that are going to add real value.
Great advice. Cindy Mitchell and Mike Ruhu, thank you so much for being on the panel. What a wonderful panel you've been. Thank you to Ali Ventura, and Checkpoint is next. See you tomorrow.
Te whakarongo mai koe ki te reo irirangi o Aotearoa. This is Checkpoint on RNZ National. I'm Lisa Owen. Tonight, an extended program to mark a month since the mosque attacks with a special documentary from our team in Christchurch. Plus, the father of a little girl who suffered brain damage after being shot multiple times at the Al Noor Mosque speaks for the first time. Wasim Al-Sati says he may have saved his daughter's life by picking her up just as the gunman fired. The family of a New Zealand Red Cross nurse kidnapped in Syria in 2013 say they haven't given up hope that she's still alive. Australian Rugby holds a press conference on the future of Israel Folau, and Tiger Woods makes what some are calling one of the greatest comebacks in sporting history.
RNZ News at 5. Kia ora, ko Susana Leao-Dawa tēnei. The Prime Minister won't comment on the case of a New Zealand Red Cross nurse taken hostage by Islamic State in 2013, except to say the government would not have gone public with it. The fate of 62-year-old Louisa Arkavi remains unknown 5.5 years after she was captured in Syria. Up to now, the media have agreed not to publish stories about her situation in order to protect her safety. But today, the International Committee of the Red Cross went public in a plea for information about her whereabouts. Jacinda Ardern was asked this afternoon for the government's response.
Forgive me, I hope, for not commenting on that case. It absolutely remains the government's view that it would be preferable if this case were not in the public domain. For that reason, I won't be commenting further on it.
Jacinda Ardern. The government said earlier today there have been continued efforts over the years to secure Ms Arkavi's release, and it is working on the basis that she is still alive. A newborn baby, who the police say desperately needs medical care, has been taken from Middlemore Hospital in Auckland, and there are serious concerns for his well-being. Jessie Chang reports.
The police say the 2-day-old boy is likely to be with his mother, Dorothy Opetaia, in South Auckland. Detective Senior Sergeant Malcolm Hassel says delaying medical attention could make him seriously ill. He's appealing for Ms Opetaia or any family members to take him to any hospital immediately. Help in finding the baby is also being sought from the public, and anyone with information should contact the police. Korjisi Chang tēnei.
Junior doctors say they're looking forward to urgent facilitation in their dispute with district health boards. The Employment Relations Authority has agreed to an application by the Resident Doctors Association that it provide such facilitation. The doctors have voted to walk off hospital wards for 5 days from April 29th in their 5th and longest strike yet over a deadlock in employment talks. The authority's recommendations are not binding, but the doctor's senior advocate, David Munro, says facilitation may help the parties find common ground.
It's true that a settlement is what it will take to end this dispute and stop the proposed strike action on the 29th of April. But settlements are, of course, possible from facilitation. They don't have to wind up waiting on a recommendation.
David Munro. Now that facilitation is going ahead, the DHBs are calling on the union to lift the strike notice. 3 more people connected with the Comanchero gang have been arrested following a major police operation. Last Thursday, the police arrested 6 people for money laundering and supplying drugs and seized $4 million worth of assets after raiding 10 properties in the Auckland area. Katie Scotcher reports.
This morning, a 37-year-old woman was charged with money laundering and importing methamphetamine, and a 48-year-old man was charged with importing meth. Both are due to appear in the Auckland District Court. The police also say they're seeking the extradition of a 40-year-old New Zealander arrested in Sydney on Friday. Inquiries into the gang and its associates are continuing, and the police have not ruled out further arrests or charges. Ko Katie Scotcher aho.
Authorities at London's Gatwick Airport suspect the drone attack that forced the airport's closure for 30 hours last year was an inside job. Several drones were spotted above the runway just before Christmas, and an estimated 1,000 flights had to be diverted or cancelled, affecting the travel of about 140,000 people. The drone operator has never been found, but Gatwick's Chief Operating Officer Chris Woodruff is now saying that whoever it was must have had inside knowledge.
The drone attack was clearly a malicious attack, and by virtue of the way that they operated, they clearly had some idea of how airports work and had some intelligence as to what we were doing.
Chris Woodruff says the person or persons behind the attack seemed to know airport procedure and could see what was happening on the runway. The lawyer for the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is accusing Ecuador of spreading lies about him. Mr Assange sought refuge at the Ecuadorian embassy in London in 2012 to avoid extradition to Sweden over allegations of sexual assault. He was arrested last week after Ecuador removed its asylum protection. The country's interior minister has said he was abusive and aggressive and smeared faeces on the walls of the residence. Jennifer Robinson says the claims are untrue.
Ecuador has been making some pretty outrageous allegations over the past few days to justify what was an unlawful and extraordinary act in allowing British police to come inside an embassy.
Julian Assange now faces likely extradition to the US over his website's massive publication of state secrets. It's just after 5:05. To sport, and All Blacks coach Steve Hansen says Israel Folau's anti-gay comments are wrong and the fullback has let himself down. The Wallaby star is standing by the homophobic post he made on social media last week, despite Rugby Australia announcing it intends to terminate his contract. At a media conference in Sydney right now, he's expected to be given a breach of contract notice. Hansen says Folau is entitled to his beliefs, but shouldn't have made such divisive comments.
What he said isn't right, and it's been dealt with pretty strongly by his employers, and he's got the right to have an opinion. But I think he's probably let himself down in how he's gone about that.
Meanwhile, Hansen and the All Blacks will have to do without Damien McKenzie for the World Cup. The first five-come All Black has been ruled out for the rest of the year after rupturing knee ligaments. American golfer Tiger Woods made one of sport's all-time great comebacks this morning, ending an 11-year major title drought by winning the Masters at Augusta. The Kangaroos and Queensland State of Origin star Greg Inglis has announced his retirement from rugby league. The New Zealand IndyCar driver Scott Dixon has finished third at the Grand Prix of Long Beach. And Steve Smith and David Warner have been named in Australia's Cricket World Cup squad after serving out bans of last year's ball tampering scandal in South Africa. That's the news.
A win.
Comeback complete. The fifth green jacket for Tiger Woods.
A defence.
You're getting hung up on minor, pedantic, procedural points.
Like who
when
did the
report...
review and what it says and whether you talk to women.
And a clash.
The Game of Thrones has nothing on all of this, does it? It really is extraordinary to hear this report this morning. Dame Jenny is not about to be dropped from the China Council.
Action and reaction. Morning Report, weekdays from 6.
Then on 9 to noon, how cybersecurity incidents in New Zealand have more than trebled in a year. And after 10, award-winning Australian nature writer Sophie Cunningham on walking, nature in the city and what trees tell us about a place. Join me, Catherine Ryan, on 9 to noon after Morning Report on RNZ National.
Now the short forecast from Met Service to midnight tomorrow. Northland, fine spells and isolated showers. Auckland to the Kapiti Coast, including Coromandel Peninsula, Bay of Plenty and the Central High Country. Mainly fine weather. Gisborne, Hawke's Bay and Wairarapa expect mostly cloudy weather, a few showers about the coast spreading further inland from tomorrow. For Wellington, long fine spells but a few showers in the east. Marlborough, Nelson, Buller, Westland and Fiordland, a few showers about northwest Nelson and Buller and cloudy periods about the Sounds, otherwise fine weather. For Canterbury, North Otago and Central Otago, fine weather apart from morning and evening cloud and isolated showers about the coast. Dunedin, Clutha and Southland expect cloudy periods and isolated showers, becoming fine tomorrow but some cloud lingering about the east coast. And at the Chatham Islands, a few showers. It's 5:08. You're with RNZ National.
Thanks, Susanna. This is Checkpoint and I'm Lisa Owen. Later in the program, we have a special documentary on the Christchurch Mosque massacre, a month on. But first tonight, the father of a 5-year-old girl who suffered brain damage after being shot at the Al Noor Mosque believes his daughter would be dead if he hadn't lifted her up just as the gunman fired. Speaking for the first time since the mosque massacre a month ago today, Christchurch Baba Wasim Al-Sati said he would always take Ellen for a fluffy and 2 marshmallows on Friday mornings, and then he would take her home before he went to prayers. But on that particular day, for the first time, they went to the mosque together. Wasim was released from hospital 2 days ago but is living at Ronald McDonald House while Ellen remains in Auckland Starship Hospital. And a warning, given the circumstances on the afternoon of March 15th, much of what Wasim describes in his interview is disturbing.
That was her first time coming with me to the mosque. And every time I think, I remember how it was, I really get hurt. And it's good if you ask me any question, but it was a tough time. It was a very tough time what happened, because that was her first time. And I was so happy that she's coming with me. Yeah.
What do you remember? When do you remember that you knew something was wrong and something was happening?
The time exactly, the few seconds before Ellen gets shot. Because it was normal, busy parking in Deans Ave Road, let's say. So it took 10 minutes to find a parking. So it was. I find out that the shooter, he was inside the mosque by the time I was looking for parking. We walked down, happy father and daughter. You know, we hold hands, we run a couple of meters. And then I didn't see anything different. A friend of mine, I know him. It was 30 meters away from the mosque. And I kept walking. I saw him come out and he said to me, "Wasim, run." And I didn't know what he meant, Wasim, run. Do I run into the mosque? Is the prayer has started? Or do I run out? So I'm like, by the time I said, "What do you mean?" So I finished exactly mean. I saw a military guy comes out. A guy wearing a military, wearing a helmet. He have F-15. So you don't see this in a normal road. You don't see this, not even with hunting. So even I went hunting here in New Zealand with friends. You don't see this kind of weapon. By the time I saw him, he didn't look at me in the eye. I know it's something wrong, and I saw his eyes looking straight to my hands, like straight to her head. And I left her up. By the time I left her up, she got hurt in the bum. So it was exactly the time that I left her up, she got hit in a bum because he was planning to hit her in the head. Because I saw where he looking. I saw, if you're looking at my hands right now, that exactly that you're sawing, that's how he was looking to her head. And then the second bullet, she got hurt in the tummy. The third bullet, she got hit in her toast. I didn't see the foot. I didn't see that. I just heard. And then I got hit in the tummy first. By the time I give him my side, I got hit twice in the back or on my bum. And then I throw Ellen, and I by the time I throw Ellen, because I didn't throw Ellen as my two legs clapped each other.
Are you both on the ground at this point?
Yes. So when I throw her, I didn't throw her on the footpath. I throw her between the footpath and a wheel. I throw her there.
Trying to give her some protection?
Yes. And then I become beside her, and I put my hands around and I try to reach her.
Were you talking to her at that point?
I was. By the time I fall, I heard another shot, and I realized that he shot a lady in the head. And I put my head on the ground. So I was very afraid that he's coming back to us. So I make it look like I'm dead. I didn't know that I was dead, so I make no sound. And then I heard a crack. I heard him go into his car, and then I heard the crack. By the time I looked, he was driving on top of a lady. And he was very calm. You know, he was very calm. You don't see these things. You don't read about it. Even in the movies, you don't see how bad it was. Then I start screaming. Two strangers come from nowhere. And One of them, he took my daughter and then he passed my daughter to someone else, not pass her, but he said, you come on, you put your hands in the wound. And then he come check on me and I said to him, I'm not bleeding yet. And I thought that I have got shot with a rubber bullet. That was my thoughts because I didn't see any blood around me. And then I said to him, I'm not bleeding yet, but she's bleeding. Please take her to the hospital.
So these are strangers, Wasim, who were in the cars coming past the mosque. They stopped to help people?
Yes. He tried to convince me to wait to the ambulance. And I said, I'm okay, just take my daughter. And then I had to hold him from his shirt. And I said, listen to me, I'm not bleeding yet, but my daughter, she got no blood left. Take her now to the hospital. And then he said, okay, all right, I'll be back. And that was about 12 or 13 minutes after we get shot. I don't know exactly, but it wasn't long, but it was very long seeing my daughter that Ellen, you okay? Don't worry. And by the time that I'm talking, she become blue, and then she become yellow, and then she starts shaking, and her hands slightly going inside, and she cannot breathe. And then he got his car very quick, and then he jumped in. They put me on the front seat. Within 3 minutes, he cut the road. He drive on the footpath, and then he took us to the hospital. And I realized that she was dead in the car. She walked into the hospital dead. And I told the doctors, I'm okay, I'm fine, just save my daughter. When I was waking up, I was screaming, asking 2 questions. One of them about one of my friends, he's died in the mosque, and his name Ata Alayan. He's the futsal player. He's the first one I met in New Zealand. He took me around and showed me everywhere, and Ata. He's going to stay with us. Ata, he's not dead.
Wasim, are you okay to carry on?
Yeah. And then I was asking about him, and then I was telling everybody I couldn't save my daughter. And everybody been telling me, Ata, it's okay, your daughter, it's okay. But I said, where is Ata, where is my daughter? Where they are? No, your daughter, it's fine. No, I couldn't save my daughter. And then I wake up again in Auckland. And when they wake me up, I was still screaming, looking for my daughter and looking for Ata. They brought me here in Auckland, and I don't know how long it was, but they took me. Amazing nurse guy. He's amazing. I felt his hands on my shoulder. He said, I'm going to take you to your daughter now. And I said, please do. And then he took me in the bed. I was in a clinical care, and then he took me to my daughter. And he brought me close to my daughter. And I saw my daughter, and then I start realizing, she's here, she's alive. She's here, she's alive. And a few days after, I start wake up, and I start know what's going on around me. But this week, very much. This week, I do have the power and the guts to talk about it in front of people. And what happened, it's happened. I'm very glad it's he didn't succeed. He didn't part the country. I was afraid to go back to Christchurch. My wife, she's afraid to go back to Christchurch. But the amount of love and support from my customers, from people that I never met, in Auckland and Christchurch and Gift and now we are going back to Christchurch. We've got home, and we call it New Zealand. I'm not going to give up that. I'm not. My wife, she's not. We have talked about it. My kids loved it here. Tala, Tulane, and Owen, they loved it here.
How is your little girl now, Alan? How is she?
I just saw her half an hour ago, and it was, in my opinion, she's getting much better. The doctor, they refused to give us any report. But in my opinion, even if she's special needs, she's my beautiful daughter. I'm going to take her out again. We're going to go have coffee. A C4. Just going to stop for a minute.
We'll stop for a minute.
I've got hope. All New Zealand pray for my daughter. Muslims, Christian, Buddhists, everybody. My daughter got a huge amount of teddy bears. She got a huge amount of gift cards to read. And she will read them. I do believe in God. I do believe in miracles. I do believe in that she will get better. She will get better.
Can you tell us what you know about her condition at the moment?
It's hard for me to talk about one of my kids' special needs or what's they going to be, but her hands inside and she moving the hands and the legs with a way that she cannot feel. She don't move one of the legs that she got badly hit by the hip, but she cannot hear, she cannot see. She's. I did hug her this afternoon, and I saw a patch in the head here because she's been lying back a lot. And but I do believe that me and my daughter and my wife, they're connecting. We do believe in that.
How is your family managing? Because you would normally work, yes, and you're still not well. Your family is away from Christchurch. How are you managing with all those practical things?
We have received some donations from people we don't know, and in small envelopes. And I want to say that thank you very much. Thank you very much for the smallest card or the biggest card you have sent, guys. Appreciate that. And we have a little bit also from victim support. But we've been hearing about millions is coming, but we don't know yet about it. And I have created, give a little page for Ellen next future. But I don't know.
Well, Wasim, just none of this is your fault. None of this is your fault. But talking to you, you have said things like, I couldn't save my little girl. And how are you feeling as a dad? You know, I feel you're hurting.
I'm hurt. But in the last few days, I start understand that that's the case, and we need to stand. We need to focus of what we got now. There is no time to think about if I did this, if I did that, if I could do this, because I start thinking about it. Oh gosh, what if it's happened in a church? What if it's happened with another father? God, he will be hurt. I don't want this to happen with another father, because it's really painful. Doesn't matter whose father is. It's really painful. I don't mind to get hurt myself. I don't mind. I've got a lot of painkillers. But to see one of my kids get hurt, oh man, that's really tough. And we don't deserve that much of hate. That's one of the things we decided to come to your country, to feel safe, because that's safe. This is safe here.
It's our country, Wasim.
But it's our country now. It's our country, and I'm happy to keep standing outside and take bullets and save other Kiwi people because they don't deserve that. After the show, the love that they give us. Yeah.
And that is Al Noor Mosque survivor Wasim Al-Sati speaking with me this afternoon. Now, Wasim wanted to say a very special thanks to the police officer, Inspector Nyla Hansen, and the family who looked after his 3 other children while he was unconscious in hospital and his wife was at his daughter's bedside. Now, you can find details of that Give a Little page, which has been set up for the long-term medical care for Alan. It is on our Facebook page. And please stay with us for an extended checkpoint tonight after 6 o'clock. A documentary from our Christchurch reporter Logan Church and cameraman Simon Rogers, who were some of the first journalists at the scene of the attacks. In breaking news now, Wallaby star Israel Folau has officially been sacked for his anti-gay social media posts. In the past few minutes, he's been handed an official code of conduct breach notice by Rugby Australia. Our rugby reporter Joe Porter will join us after the headlines. While the fate of the Red Cross nurse, Louisa Akavi, remains unknown, her family, the Red Cross and the New Zealand government say they have not given up hope. Louisa was on her 17th mission delivering medical supplies in Syria in 2013 when the convoy she was travelling in came under fire. 7 people were abducted. 4 were released the next day, but Louisa and 2 Syrian drivers were not among them. Both the International Committee of the Red Cross and the New Zealand government have made concerted efforts to find and save Louisa, along with the drivers. A story media have agreed not to tell for 5.5 years, so as not to put her at any further risk. Today, that all changed with the ICRC breaking its silence and putting out a plea to anyone with information that could help locate the 3 Red Cross staff. Here's our political editor, Jane Patterson.
Today we are making a public plea for information about 3 of our staff members who were abducted in Syria in 2013. The staff are Louisa Akawi, a dedicated and committed nurse from New Zealand who has been working for the Red Cross ever since 1988. And also Ala Rajab and Nabil Bekdounes, both Syrians who have been working for us as drivers, and both of them, I know, are loving husbands and caring fathers.
The ICRC says it's gone public on the disappearance of Louisa Akavi and 2 Syrian drivers after the fall of the last ISIS bastion in Syria, Baghouz. It did so amid concerns that they'd lose Louisa's trail following the collapse of the caliphate. It says the last credible sighting of her was late last year. The government here has also been following active leads since early this year. New Zealand officials went into an internally displaced persons camp in Syria where there was a suspected sighting, but that proved to be a false lead. There's been no news of Louisa since then. Director of Operations for the ICRC, Dominic Stillhart, has this message for Louisa and her 2 colleagues.
I want to tell you, Louisa, Ala and Nabil, we have continued searching for you throughout all these years, and we won't give up hope to see you once again among us. Unfortunately, and despite all our efforts, we don't know what's happened to Ala and Nabil ever since 2013. As to Louisa, we know that she is held captive by the Islamic State group, and we have repeatedly received credible information about her whereabouts.
And he had this plea.
With the loss of territory of the Islamic State in Syria, the urgency to find our colleagues has reached a new peak. We are thus calling on anybody who has information on Louisa, Ala and Nabil to urgently step forward and share this information with us.
The ICRC says in the first years of Louisa's captivity they were in active communication with Islamic State in Syria, but were not able to persuade them to release her, and after that communication fell off. It says that because of the nature of its work, the ICRC has relationships with armed actors, and they've tried as many avenues as possible. That included trying to influence the Islamic State group leadership by speaking to sheikhs in Europe, the Middle East and Asia, as well as prisoners in the Middle East who might be able to guide them towards fresh information. The New Zealand Red Cross also spoke publicly today, with Director General Niamh Lawless telling reporters it was a difficult day for Louisa's family and the Red Cross.
Louisa is a valued member of the Red Cross whānau. She's an extremely capable and experienced nurse, dedicated, resilient and compassionate. She's worked with the Red Cross Red Crescent movement for more than 30 years, and this was her 17th field mission. Louise has dedicated her life to assisting those affected by war and violence, and she went to Syria because people needed her. She wanted to use her skills to make a difference for some of the world's most vulnerable people.
Ms Lawless also described the New Zealand Red Cross's dealings with the Akavi family.
Right from the very beginning, we had a specialist crisis management team here, as well as a team in Geneva. And all along, we've worked closely beside the family in terms of any support, information, conversations, and they've been part of decisions along the way. They're a really resilient family, so we very much respond to what they ask and need from us. And from our perspective, we have a very warm, supportive relationship with them.
The New York Times has reported there were negotiations between the Red Cross and the terrorist group in the initial months after Louisa's abduction via text, phone calls and email. It reported Islamic State initially demanded a ransom of more than $1.5 million and for the release of detained fighters. The ransom later rose to $33 million, falling again to just over $8 million, on par with other Western hostages. The New Zealand government has a policy of not paying ransoms for hostages. The head of the Red Cross's crisis management team, John Dyer, says his organisation takes the same position.
The Red Cross movement has a standard policy, and this is made clear to people that deploy and to everybody else, that we do not pay ransom as such. So New Zealand Red Cross hasn't been party to any discussions with regarding ransom.
The family has requested privacy, but spokesperson Tuani Robati released this video statement.
Our sister, cousin and aunt Louisa was taken in Syria in October 2013. Our family misses her very much and is concerned for her safety. We think about her every day and hope she feels that and finds strength in that. We know she's thinking of us and that she will be worried about us too. Louisa is an incredibly experienced nurse and aid worker who knew the risks of her job.
Said the family was very proud of Louisa and the work she's dedicated her life to.
She has true goodness in her heart. That's why she became a nurse. She loves helping people. She's been through tough times in her job before, but she's stuck at it because she loves it. Our family has been in regular contact with and supported by the New Zealand Red Cross, the International Committee of the Red Cross, and the New Zealand government throughout this ordeal. We miss Louisa very much. We love her. We just want her home.
The Foreign Minister Winston Peters released a statement saying part of the government's efforts over the years included the deployment of a small multi-agency team in Iraq, including the SAS, specifically focused on finding Louisa. He says all the territory once held by ISIS has been liberated, but her whereabouts remains unknown. Mr Peters says the government will continue to work tirelessly to locate her and bring her to safety. The New Zealand government had remained of the view the story should not have been made public while Louisa's fate remained unknown, reiterated in Mr Peters' statement with the comment the priority must be the safety of the hostage, and the government received clear advice any publicity would place Louisa at even greater risk. However, he also acknowledged the cooperation of the media over the years and the circumstances in which the story has now come into the public arena. From Parliament for Checkpoint, Jane Patterson.
Stay with us on this extended checkpoint tonight. After 6, we'll bring you a special documentary from our Christchurch reporter Logan Church, a month on from the mosque massacre. But coming up, Australian rugby officially sacks Israel Folau, and Tiger Woods wins his 5th Masters, his first since 2005. As always, we'd love to hear from you about anything you've heard on the program. Do text us 2101, or you can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ, or send us an email, checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. But first, here's the headlines.
The Prime Minister says the government would not have gone public with the case of a missing Red Cross nurse. Louisa Arkavi was abducted by Islamic State in Syria in 2013, and the government and media had agreed not to publish her situation to protect her safety. But today, the International Committee of the Red Cross went public in a plea for information about her whereabouts following the collapse of the IS Caliphate. The police in Auckland have serious concerns for the well-being of a newborn baby they say desperately needs medical care. They believe he has been taken from Middlemore Hospital by his mother, Dorothy Opetaia. Detective Senior Sergeant Malcolm Hassel says delaying medical attention could make the 2-day-old infant seriously ill. DHBs are calling on the Junior Doctors Union to lift their strike notice now that urgent mediation has been agreed by the Employment Relations Authority. The Resident Doctors Association had voted to walk off hospital wards for 5 days from April the 29th over a deadlock in employment talks. The authority's recommendations are not binding, but the Doctors Union says the facilitation may help the parties find common ground. The police have arrested 3 more people connected with the Comanchero gang. Last week, the police raided properties in Auckland and arrested 6 people on money laundering and drug supply charges. This morning, a 37-year-old woman was charged with money laundering and importing methamphetamine, and a 48-year-old man with importing meth. The police are also seeking the extradition of a 40-year-old New Zealander arrested in Sydney on Friday. Wallaby star Israel Folau has officially been sacked for his anti-gay social media posts. Folau has been handed an official Code of Conduct breach notice of his contract by Rugby Australia this evening, resulting in the termination of his contract. He has 48 hours to accept the sanction or have the matter referred to a Code of Conduct hearing. Those are the headlines. Our next news and weather update is at 6.
Thanks, Susanna. And Madison Redia has joined us in the studio for business. Madison, so KiwiSaver funds are going towards startup companies, are they?
This is a new venture that's been formed within the business consulting firm, the Icehouse. Now, this new venture is called Icehouse Ventures, for lack of a better term, and it's merged all of its startup-related activities. So things like its capital raising funds, it has a few of those, and also its business acceleration programs. Now, it's being backed by a KiwiSaver provider, the no-frills one called Simplicity, and also Sir Stephen Tyndall's investment fund called K1W1. Also within that is also the investment banking firm FNZC is behind this too. Simplicity is committing $100 million to this over 10 years, so over a decade. They're initially stumping up just $2 million of that. The rest is tentative depending on how it goes. Now, the owner of Simplicity, Sam Stubbs, he says that up until now, KiwiSavers have essentially missed out on any profits and returns created by high growth companies. He cited ones like Rocket Lab and LanzaTech, which haven't actually listed on the New Zealand Stock Exchange, but they have moved offshore and done very well. So he expects after this move, he expects other KiwiSaver providers to follow his lead and to look at investing in startup businesses too.
Interesting. And also we've got figures out, latest figures on the service sectors. How's it doing?
Not so great, actually. This is the BNZ Business New Zealand Performance of Services Index. Now, it fell 0.9 points in the month of March to a measure of 52.9. Now, that's on the back of a 2.7 point fall in the month of February. So it's a pretty negative start to the year for the services sector. It's now at the lowest level since December 2012. But we should note too that any measure over 50 still indicates expansion, so could and certainly has been worse previously. Now, the Chief Executive of Business New Zealand, Kirk Hope, he said that some of the details in the month of March results are a little bit concerning. He pointed to new orders being down. They're down to their lowest level since September 2012, and sales also slipped. But there was a little bit of positive news in the result too. The number of positive comments from businesses actually rose. Most of them are saying it's business as usual, but there are obviously some that are concerned concerned about the future of the economy.
OK, well, wrap up the markets and the dollar for us then.
The NZX Top 50 Index is up 0.8% tonight. That's a 75-point rise to close at 9,846. The New Zealand dollar is buying at 67.8 US cents, 64.5 to the Australian and 51.7 British pence. And just a bit of news hot off the press from the Financial Markets Authority this evening. The FMA says that it's taking a former listed company to the High Court at Auckland over alleged market manipulation. They allege that the former chief executive of a company called Oceana Natural and two of its directors and another individual with interim name suppression breached disclosure obligations and market manipulation prohibitions 15 times. Now that was, they allege, when they traded shares between May 2016 and April 2017. Now this case is a civil proceeding. The FMA is going for financial penalties and Oceana delisted from NZX's next market last year and they declined to comment this evening.
Thanks, Madison. Madison Reedy with Business. Wallabies star Israel Folau has officially been sacked for his anti-gay social media posts. Folau has been handed an official code of conduct breach notice of his contract by Rugby Australia this evening. The Integrity Unit deemed Folau had committed a high-level breach warranting termination of his contract. Rugby Australia Chief Executive Raylene Castle says Folau has failed to meet his obligations after being warned last year over similar social media posts.
Israel was warned formally and repeatedly that any social media posts or commentary that in any way were disrespectful to people because of their sexuality would result in disciplinary action. Despite this, Israel has chosen to ignore this warning, which is why we are here today.
Raylene Castle. Now, this comes just hours after the Wallabies coach, Michael Cheika, says he won't pick Israel Folau for this year's Rugby World Cup following the star fullback's anti-gay comments on social media. Folau is standing by his comments. All Blacks coach Steve Hansen says Folau's posts were wrong and that the player had let himself down. Hansen says Folau is entitled to his beliefs but shouldn't make such divisive comments.
What he said isn't right and it's been dealt with pretty strongly by his employers. And he's got the right to have an opinion, but I think he's probably let himself down in how he's gone about that.
Steve Hansen there. And our rugby reporter Joe Porter joins us now. Joe, has he been fired? Has his contract been torn up? But it's not the end of it really, is it?
No, that's right. He has been sacked and he's got 48 hours to either accept that sanction, to accept that his contract has been terminated with Rugby Australia, or he can appeal the decision. Now, if he appeals the decision, he'll go to a code of conduct hearing. Now, unfortunately, before you can fire someone in this employment situation, you need to give a breach of notice. So that's why it's taken the Rugby Australia so long to officially fire Folau. They really wanted to get their case against him watertight before they gave him that official breach, which would result in the termination of his contract. Now, like I said, Folau has 48 hours to appeal. It's very, very likely that he'll do so based upon religious grounds, his strong sense of beliefs, and essentially that this is a breach of freedom of speech from Rugby Australia's behalf. So, yes, this saga is far from over. We've also got Easter and, of course, Anzac holidays coming up. Somewhat ironic because Folau has recently preached at a sermon that people shouldn't be celebrating Easter, but that's going to push this out even further. So we're going to find that over the next few weeks this could rumble on for quite some time with lawyers doing their things, appeals being made, and no doubt Folau will wait till the very end of that 48 hours before announcing he's going to appeal the decision.
Meanwhile, Damian McKenzie's dreams of playing at first Rugby World Cup are over for this year at least. The All Blacks coach, Steve Hansen, confirmed this morning that McKenzie ruptured knee ligaments in the Chiefs' win over the Blues on the weekend. Hansen says it is a bitter pill to swallow for both the first five come fullback and the team.
He's done an ACL, so his World Cup opportunity's gone. He's still young enough to make probably the next two, so it creates another opportunity for somebody else. So we've got to expect injuries, and there'll be more than just him, I'd suggest, by the time we finally name the team to go to the World Cup.
So, Joe, how much of a blow is this for the All Blacks?
Yeah, well, initially I sort of thought, like Hansen did, that injuries to top players, especially in a World Cup year, can be expected. The All Blacks have a history of it, and it is the nature of the game these days. But the more you think about it, it really becomes clear this is quite a devastating blow for the All Blacks and their World Cup chances. Damien McKenzie, while not necessarily a starting player, was a key cog in that match day 23, either coming off the bench at fullback or first five to provide spark and burst and impact from the bench, which we know he can do. He's a really unique player with ball in hand and creates space for a lot of his players around him, and against tiring defences he's a dynamo. So he was also playing a dual playmaker role with Beauden Barrett. We know Beauden Barrett isn't necessarily an out-and-out first five, even still heading into this World Cup year. So having them both on the field, two first fives, one playing first five and fullback, really gave the All Blacks a dual playmakers role, and they could play on either side of the field and essentially both run the game, giving Beauden Barrett a little bit of help controlling the All Blacks around the park. So this is a really big blow. They don't have a like-for-like replacement. He's incredibly versatile. They've got guys like Richie Mo'unga from the Crusaders first five, who's obviously next cab off the rank. He's a fantastic first five, perhaps even more of a backline general than Beauden Barrett, without the same natural brilliance. However, he's not Damien McKenzie. He can't come on and spark games with a scything run from fullback like Damien McKenzie can, or make incisive breaks running off the cuff from first five quite in the same manner. And beyond Richie Mo'unga, you've got a very sort of a lack of depth in the first five position. You don't really have any out-and-out first fives. You've got guys like Geordie Barrett, who could play there at a pinch, perhaps Ben Smith, the fullback, even TJ Perenara from the All Blacks. But really, there's no one behind those three, Barrett, Mo'unga and McKenzie, that can play first five at international level. So that lack of depth there is incredibly concerning. And let's wait, another injury, and we could see Stephen Donald at this World Cup again.
So, Joe, while we've got here, let's switch codes for a second. The Wellington Phoenix football coach is leaving after one season. What's going on there?
Yes, well, Mark Rudan announcing, or the club finally confirming that he was heading back to Australia at the end of the season. Look, the club puts it down to a simple case of him being homesick and missing his family and his base in Sydney, and a large part of that will be the reason, and a large part of that is true. However, behind the scenes, there were some tensions between Mark Rudan, a very ambitious young coach who's done so well this year with a Phoenix team that has struggled to really make an impact on the A-League, but this year they're guaranteed to make the playoffs. They're playing a good brand of football and have had some great results. So he's done really, really well with it, with a squad and a club that was up to bugger all at the start of the year. However, he's asked for more money to buy more players, and he wants to chase big-name players and bring guys to the club. And unfortunately, the club owners and general manager seem a little bit resistant to that. So there has been some tensions behind the scenes between the front office and the coach. And unfortunately, I guess they've both decided it's not quite going to work out. And Rudan, well, he's had a great success in his first year. He'll get snapped up over in Australia again, no doubt, very quickly as an A-League coach. And there's a new expansion side coming out of Western Sydney, which is kind of where he's from. So it all sort of seems to fall into place for Mark Rudan, and he'll be given a whole lot more money to work with at the new club too.
Thanks, Joe. It's good to talk to you. Joe Porter, our rugby reporter there. And let's stay with sport. It's being called one of the greatest comebacks in sports history. More than a decade after he last did so, and after many saying he would never do so again, this morning golf superstar Tiger Woods won his 15th major championship. The 43-year-old American's one-shot victory at the US Masters earned him a 5th green jacket at the famous Augusta course in Georgia, and his first since 2005. As Clay Wilson reports, Woods' win has sent the world of golf into a spin.
Comeback complete. The 5th green jacket for Tiger Woods.
In the immediate aftermath of a victory many were adamant wasn't possible, even the man himself struggled to describe what had just transpired.
Yeah, just unreal.
Before today, Woods' last major win came in 2008. He was a player at the peak of his powers and one of the most recognisable sporting figures on the planet. The following year, Woods' world came crashing down when he was forced to admit he'd been cheating on his then wife, leading to a very public divorce. Several failed comebacks followed, with an arrest for driving under the influence of drugs and 4 back surgeries, leading many to call an end to his time as an elite golfer. Last year, though, glimpses of the old Tiger eventually started to re-emerge. After finally returning to the summit, hugging his own kids exactly where he shared a famous hug with his late father after his first major win 22 years ago, Woods said his career had truly come full circle.
Oh, now I know why I'm balding. This stuff is hard. To do it here. This has meant so much to me and my family, this tournament, and to have everyone here, it's something I'll never, ever forget.
Woods' triumph also marked the first time he had come from behind at the start of the final round to win a major. The former New Zealand professional turned commentator Phil Tatarangi was at Augusta to witness Tiger Mania at fever pitch. The former PGA Tour winner says it was an experience unlike any other.
The scenes here around the back nine when Tiger was emerging from the pack as a real challenger, it brought back memories 22 years ago when he did it for the first time. It was like being at a rock concert. It really was.
Tatarangi believes Woods' win will have an immense impact, bringing about a rebirth for the game of golf. He says it's a comeback almost no one could have predicted.
He told us, the golfing media here 2 years ago, that he was done. That maybe the only time that he was going to be coming to Augusta National would be to the Champions Dinner. And that was a pretty blunt assessment of where he was at with his body and his expectations.
The last of Woods' 4 back surgeries was a complicated spinal fusion procedure. He happily admits he was one of the doubters.
I had, serious doubts after, what transpired a couple of years ago. I could barely walk. I couldn't sit, couldn't lay down. I really couldn't do much of anything.
Someone who says he always believed Woods could get back to his best is Jack Nicklaus. The 79-year-old's all-time record of 18 major titles is now just 3 clear of Woods. Nicklaus told the Golf Channel today's final round played out with an air of predictability.
This is a man who is possessed. He's possessed to win a golf tournament. He's absolutely under total control, and he's going to get it done. And he did. There wasn't any question in my mind. And I said, it doesn't make any difference what anybody else is going to do. Somebody else is going to make enough mistakes, but Tiger won't make any, and he didn't.
And Nicklaus says his record is now firmly under threat.
I felt for a long time that he was going to win again. And, the next 2 majors are at Bethpage where he's won and at Pebble Beach where he's won. So, he's got me shaking in my boots, guys.
As for the man himself, today's win has given him belief more major wins are possible. He may not bounce back like he used to, but Woods says the old Tiger is well and truly back and ready to pounce.
I can tell you one thing, I'm pretty sore right now. I've definitely let it all go today and ramped up the speed. And I was starting to have a little bit of pop on the bat out there, which was good to see. And I can promise you one thing, I'm not going to hit a golf ball tomorrow.
A well-deserved day off after a comeback win to remember. Moti Hotaka o tia hipo nei, ko Clay Wilson aho.
It's about 8 minutes away from 6. I'm Lisa Owen and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can text us on 2101. You can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ or email checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. Severe weather warnings are in force across the southeastern United States as powerful storms, including tornadoes, sweep in. 4 people, including 2 children, have already been killed and many more injured. Worst hit are the states of Louisiana, Mississippi and Texas, where in the town of Franklin, 50 homes were destroyed. The BBC's Dan Johnson reports.
Franklin, a small Texas town sitting in America's Tornado Alley. The full force of nature's strongest, swirling winds focused here for just a few minutes, but an entire community was torn apart. Its homes were smashed to pieces, and its families were scattered.
You got houses turned over, you got houses off foundations. It looks like a bomb had gone off.
A powerful storm whipping up winds of more than 140 miles an hour.
It happened so quick, I didn't have time to get scared until it was over.
While this family's home was pulled apart, they sheltered in the hallway.
There is part of my garage. My front porch, the awning out over that house to the front porch, is in my neighbor's yard.
100 miles away, strong winds brought a tree down on a car, killing 2 children. Drivers were trapped and injured in overturned vehicles. Electricity lines came down, leaving thousands without power. Here, they are now beginning to recover, but this huge storm system is still on the move, heading east, putting millions more at risk.
Dan Johnson reporting there. Just before Christmas last year, a drone buzzing above the skies of London's Gatwick Airport caused chaos. The airport was closed for 33 hours over 2 days, sparking the cancellation of more than 1,000 flights and disrupting travel plans of 140,000 passengers. The drone operator was never found, and authorities are now looking into the possibility it was an inside job. Here's the BBC's Tom Burridge.
flight leaves or arrives at Gatwick every few minutes. But when drones were spotted just before Christmas, the airport's only runway was closed for more than 30 hours. It was bleak for tens of thousands of passengers. We've now learned that a security officer made the first sightings. He spotted 2 drones at the edge of the airfield. All flights were suspended. 3 hours later, the drones had disappeared. But when a team went out to inspect the runway, a standard procedure before reopening, a drone was suddenly back. And that pattern was repeated throughout the next day.
Each time these vehicles went out to prepare the runway to reopen, a drone would, as if by magic, reappear over the airfield again. Someone seemed to understand how an airport operates and could even see what was going on.
Gatwick, in its first interview since the incident, suggests whoever was operating the drones had inside knowledge.
The drone attack was clearly a malicious attack, and by virtue of the way that they operated, they clearly had some idea of how airports work and had some intelligence as to what we were doing.
Once the military had set up counter-drone equipment on top of the South Terminal, the number of drone sightings dropped significantly. Gatwick has defended closing the airport for so long.
It's absolutely appropriate that if we have a drone operating at the airport, that we suspend operations. That was our agreed protocol in advance, and that's exactly what we did on the day. And I have no regrets, because we maintain the safety of our passengers.
Detected. Since the incident, UK airports, including Gatwick, have been investing in new equipment like radar developed in the Netherlands. Most drones are too small for standard radar. This one can pick them up and differentiate them from birds. It was used to protect world leaders at the G20 last summer and demonstrated to us at this Dutch military airbase.
If a drone flies onto a runway, there's no simple solution. Bringing it down can be risky, hacking it or jamming it hard. Gatwick has exposed just how vulnerable to drones a lot of places are.
Airports are actually one of the most difficult areas to protect, and that has to do with the collateral damage that intervention methods could lead to.
Only an innocent couple has been arrested for what happened at Gatwick. Sussex Police says more than 100 people, mainly airport staff and police officers, saw the drones. It hasn't released video of them because it says the footage is such poor quality. But it remains a mystery how someone could fly drones into one of the world's busiest airports, cause chaos for such a long time, and for now at least, get away with it.
And that was Tom Burridge there from Gatwick Airport, south of London. Royal Baby Watch is well and truly underway for Britain's Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, but as CNN's Max Foster reports, this baby's arrival isn't getting the normal royal treatment.
They are the most modern of royal couples. She's an American former Hollywood actress.
Wow, you're pretty.
Good. You've hit on me. We can get it out of the way that I am not interested.
He's the one-time Playboy prince who's now trying to bust taboos around mental health.
We've never really talked about it. We've never really talked about losing a mum at such a young age.
Ever since the couple moved out of Kensington Palace, which they shared with Prince William and Kate, speculation has been rife about what sort of parents they'll be.
This rumor about this sort of vegan baby and gender neutral, I think that's a little bit over the top. But she's certainly probably going to cook this baby's food.
Then there's the way the baby will be introduced to the world. The Sussexes aren't in the direct line of succession, so they're not expected to follow every formality.
What you'd expect is that they would observe the traditions that they think are appropriate.
They are minor royals. This baby has a lot more freedom than, say, George has.
So don't expect any of this when the baby is born. As a direct heir to the throne, Prince George's departure from hospital was a public event, watched on by the world's media. This time around, we don't even know where Meghan will be having her baby. It could well be at home in Windsor. Whilst George's birth announcement was placed on an easel at Buckingham Palace, Prince Harry and Meghan are likely to announce their baby's arrival on Instagram. In the days that follow the birth, 2 cameras at most will be invited to Windsor to capture the new family on behalf of all media. In the words of the palace, Their Royal Highnesses have taken a personal decision to keep the plans around the arrival of their baby private. The Duke and Duchess look forward to sharing the exciting news with everyone once they've had an opportunity to celebrate privately as a new family. With their wedding, Harry and Meghan showed the world they understand their place in public life, allowing the media in when they think it's justified. But as they enter parenthood, they're making clear that access to their children will be much more restricted.
And that's CNN's Max Foster there from London. A little bit of time for your feedback now on an interview we did with Wasim. Wasim was injured in the Al Noor mosque attack along with his daughter Ellen, who was 4 years old at the time she was shot. This one in saying, listening to Wasim, I feel so humbled by his affirmation that New Zealand is their home. Bless him and his little family. Another person here questioning where all the victim support donations that people have given are going and asking us to look into that.
RNZ News at 6. Ngā mihi nui, ko Susana Leia tāua tēnei. The Wallabies star Israel Folau has officially been sacked from Australia's national rugby team for his anti-gay social media posts. Rugby Australia has just terminated his contract. Its chief executive, Raelene Castle, told a media conference in Sydney he has failed to meet his obligations despite being warned last year over similar posts.
Israel was warned formally and repeatedly that any social media posts or commentary that in any way were disrespectful to people because of their sexuality would result in disciplinary action. Despite this, Israel has chosen to ignore this warning, which is why we are here today.
Raelene Castle. Folau has 48 hours to accept the sanction or have the matter referred to a code of conduct hearing. The father of a girl who suffered brain damage when she was shot in the mosque attacks says she would be dead if he hadn't lifted her up just as the gunman fired. Wasim Al-Sati said strangers helped to take him and his daughter, 5-year-old Ellen, to Christchurch Hospital in the minutes after the attack on Masjid Al-Noor. He was released from hospital 2 days ago but is living at Ronald McDonald House in Auckland while Ellen remains in Starship Hospital. On Checkpoint tonight, Mr Al-Sati spoke publicly for the first time since the massacre.
I don't want this to happen with another father because it's really painful. To see one of my kids get hurt, oh man, that's really tough. And we don't deserve that much of hate. That's one of the things we decided to come to your country, to feel safe.
Wasim Al-Sati, his daughter Ellen's condition is currently described as stable. A Christchurch judge is urging people to let justice take its course after death threats were made to people charged in relation to the mosque shootings. 6 men have appeared in the Christchurch District Court today on various charges of possessing or sharing the shooter's live stream video and manifesto. Katie Todd reports.
All but one of the men have name suppression and most remain in custody after their appearance in court today. But Crown Prosecutor Pip Curry told the court that at least one man has received death threats after being charged. As a result of the threats, the Crown is taking a neutral stance about continuing name suppression. Judge Stephen O'Driscoll says it is important that justice takes its course, without public interference detracting from those who have appeared before the court. In Christchurch, ko Katie Todd, tēnei.
The International Committee of the Red Cross says it's surprised by the Prime Minister's objection to its decision to name the kidnapped New Zealand nurse Louisa Arkevi. The committee spoke for the first time today since Ms Arkevi was taken hostage by Islamic State in 2013 in a plea for information about her and 2 Syrian drivers captured with her. Jacinda Ardern today declined to directly criticise the Red Cross but repeatedly said the government opposed its decision and had made that clear to the agency. The agency's Director of Operations, Dominic Stillhart, says it would not have made the decision without the support of the New Zealand government. He says he's confident the decision was made with full transparency and in coordination with the government. Senior doctors are relieved there will be independent mediation in the junior doctors' row. The Employment Relations Authority has agreed to a request from the Junior Doctors Union for urgent facilitation. The Executive Director of the Association of Salaried Medical Specialists, Ian Powell, says it's the best news he's heard during the entire lengthy dispute.
We have exhausted, tired specialists working in our public hospitals at the moment. We already have 20% shortages of specialists, and they're having to cope with the strike the strikes that are occurring, which themselves arise out of a very bitter acrimonious dispute.
Ian Powell. A date has not been set, but both sides will sit down with a facilitator in Auckland soon. Another Auckland garage has been suspended for failing to do warrant of fitness safety checks properly. The suspension of World Motors in Glenfield and its vehicle inspector, Sun Jin Kim, affects 1,500 vehicles whose owners are being asked to get a recheck. The Transport Agency says an unauthorised staff member has been doing warrant inspections. He says Mr Kim has also admitted not using the proper equipment to test brakes and lights and failing to correctly inspect seatbelts. This takes the total number of vehicles caught up in the warrant scandal to more than 35,000. So far, 11,000 of those have been re-inspected, of which 7,000 failed their first re-inspection, a failure rate well above what is usual. The Labour MP for Rongotai has slammed Regional Council spending on Wellington's new bus service as unacceptable. The capital's network was overhauled last June, but commuters have since complained of late buses and buses that don't turn up at all. Official figures show 12 contractors brought in to fix the system after it was introduced were paid $1.6 million by the Greater Wellington Regional Council. Paul Eagle says the changed system was supposed to make things better, but has caused nothing but problems.
This is just yet another issue that's arisen. There were meant to be savings in place, which ratepayers were promised. What we're now being told is that all of that saving could be used on contractors, and I think that's unacceptable.
Paul Eagle says the council promised things would be fixed before Christmas, but the problems persist. It's 6:05. To sport, and as you may have just heard in the news, Wallaby star Israel Folau has officially been sacked for his anti-gay social media posts. Rugby Australia has just terminated his contract. He now has 48 hours to accept the sanction or have the matter referred to a code of conduct hearing. All Blacks coach Steve Hansen says Folau let himself down. He says the player is entitled to his beliefs, but he shouldn't make such a divisive comment.
What he said isn't right, and it's been dealt with pretty strongly by his employers, and he's got the right to have an opinion. But I think he's probably let himself down in how he's gone about that.
Steve Hansen. The Wellington Phoenix insist there was no realistic way of retaining homesick head coach Mark Rudin and have already begun their hunt for a new coach. The 43-year-old Australian has confirmed he's leaving at the end of the A-League football season. He was on a 2-year contract but has struggled living away from his Sydney-based family. The Kangaroos and Queensland State of Origin star Greg Inglis has announced his retirement from rugby league. And Steve Smith and Dave Warner have been named in Australia's Cricket World Cup squad after serving out bans for last year's ball tampering scandal in South Africa. That's the news.
It's 150 years since the periodic table was first published.
Boron nitride and boron carbide, they are put on drill bits and they are almost as hard apparently as diamond.
Join chemistry professor Alan Blackman and me, Alison Ballance, in the RNZ podcast Elemental.
If you've got a magnet, you can physically levitate it between two bits of bismuth.
Elemental. Find us on the podcast page at rnz.co.nz.
Now the short forecast from Met Service to midnight tomorrow. For Northland, fine spells and isolated showers. Auckland through to the Kapiti Coast, as well as Coromandel Peninsula, Bay of Plenty and the Central High Country, mainly fine weather. Gisborne, Hawke's Bay and Wairarapa, mostly cloudy. A few showers about the coast, spreading further inland tomorrow. For Wellington, long fine spells, but a few showers in the east. Marlborough, Nelson, Buller, Westland and Fiordland. A few showers about northwest Nelson and Buller and cloudy periods about the Sounds, otherwise fine. For Canterbury, North Otago and Central Otago, fine weather apart from morning and evening cloud and isolated showers about the coast. Dunedin, Clutha and Southland, cloudy periods and isolated showers, becoming fine tomorrow but some cloud lingering about the east coast. Chatham Islands, a few showers. It's coming up to 6:05. You're with RNZ National.
Thanks, Susanna. This is Checkpoint. I'm Lisa Owen. A video of kidnapped nurse Louisa Akavi was released to authorities during ransom negotiations in 2014, according to the New York Times journalist who broke the story. The 63-year-old was abducted in October 2013 in the Syrian city of Idlib. The last reliable sighting of Louisa was in December last year. New York Times journalist Rukmini Kalamaki says Islamic State initially demanded hundreds and thousands of dollars for Louisa before things went quiet.
early on in 2014, there was an active negotiation for her release with ISIS and between ISIS and the Red Cross. So at that point, they got a proof of life of her. They got a video that showed her addressing her family. They were allowed to send questions, very personal questions that she correctly answered. And then the trail went cold in late 2014, and for 2015, there was really no sighting of her and no connection at all to her captors. Starting in 2016. And then really accelerating in 2017 and 2018, there were credible sightings of her. Initially, it was just a sighting of a woman that matched her description. And then later on, people who were escaping from ISIS-controlled areas came out and told the Red Cross, not just one, but multiple people, that they had seen her working as a nurse in ISIS-run hospitals and clinics in the towns of Mayadeen, Abu Kamal, and Raqqa in Syria.
So those areas are quite far apart. Have they been moving her around, do you think?
From what I can tell, the areas correspond to the shrinking shadow, if you will, of the caliphate. So initially, ISIS held enormous territory in both Iraq and Syria, and then Raqqa fell, and then Abu Kamal fell, and Mayadeen fell, and then Susa fell. And this seems to be her movement. So it seems that she's being moved as the group is losing territory. She was being moved into the ever smaller parcel of land that they were still holding.
And she's obviously a nurse and a midwife. What do you know of what work she's been doing?
What we are told by the Red Cross is that she was spotted in clinics working in a medical capacity, and we don't know more. We don't know if she's in the operating theater or if she's delivering babies. But this is a woman who was on her 17th Red Cross mission when she was kidnapped. She has served in numerous other war zones, in Chechnya, in Somalia, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in the Philippines, in the Solomon Islands. So she has an enormous amount of experience on the ground, and specifically dealing in conflict situations where you see horrific injuries. So obviously her skills are useful, and the hope is that the Islamic State saw utility in this and therefore kept her alive.
You talked about an active negotiation. What do you know about what demands were made for the return of Louisa? Because the Red Cross has been very clear that it does not pay ransom.
Yes. So what the Red Cross told us is that initially the captors asked for under €1 million. Then as time went on, the ransom suddenly spiraled to around €20 million, and then it fell back down to €5 million. I happen to know that the $5 million is the figure that ISIS was receiving for some of the European hostages who were benefiting from government policies that allowed their nations to pay ransoms for them. It's very difficult for people like Louisa and like the American and the British hostages to be in a situation where they're being held alongside hostages from countries that do pay, because what it means is that those people are able to get out and their life becomes ever more in peril as a result of the fact that they come from countries that hew to a strict no ransom policy.
We know she was obviously taken with 2 Syrian colleagues, but over the years there have been other Western hostages as well. Do you know whose paths she has crossed during this time?
What we know is that she was held at the same facility outside of Raqqa with around 23 other Western hostages. She was held in the same cell as Kayla Mueller, who was an American aid worker and who ISIS said was killed in an airstrike in 2015. And she was in the adjoining cell, so basically next door to the male hostages, including James Foley, including John Cantley, Peter Kassig, Stephen Sotloff. They were all held in the same place.
So the last time she was seen, the last reliable sighting, is in December, and there's obviously been a lot of fierce fighting and airstrikes. What do we know of her fate after December?
We know nothing after December, and I think that's why the Red Cross, after more than 5 years of imposing a blackout and really keeping a strict silence on this case, I believe that is why they're finally going public with her situation now. The fear is that the last territory has been lost. In the chaos that has ensued, she's been lost. And they're hoping that at this point, the public, including the people who are listening to this broadcast, can perhaps help find her.
You know a lot about IS, Islamic State. You've done a lot of research and investigations. What is your feeling about whether people will feel comfortable to provide information on the whereabouts of Louisa?
Well, there's an enormous amount of people that have come out of the last little turf that ISIS held in Syria. Right now in Al-Hol camp, which is the main camp where ISIS wives, children, supporters are being taken to, there are over 70,000 people. And these people are in a really terrible situation. That camp was built for, I believe, 7,000 people, so it's got 10 times more. Conditions are difficult. It's muddy. There's not enough tents. Children are dying. And so what I've noticed, I was there for 3 weeks in February, is people are so desperate to get out of this camp that I've noticed that they're offering information. They're trying to sidle up to officials and to others who could help them and say, hey, I know something about the Islamic State. Let me offer this. So perhaps there's a chance that people who have information will come forward.
That's New York Times journalist Rukmini Callimachi. 1 month ago today, Christchurch was hit by the worst modern-day act of terror that this country has seen. 50 people were killed in the attacks on 2 mosques in Christchurch. Dozens of others were injured. While much of the country is doing its best to move on from the attacks, for others that is impossible. Some people are still in hospital with life-threatening injuries, their loved ones scared to be at home or in Christchurch at all. Money and day-to-day living is also becoming a struggle. Others are grappling with mental health. Tonight, we share with you their stories over the past month, narrated by our reporter Logan Church and videographer Simon Rogers, who were some of the first journalists at the Al Noor Mosque on Deans Avenue, arriving just minutes after the shooting. Logan and Simon witnessed the chilling aftermath firsthand. From now until 7 o'clock this evening, this is their story in their words and the words of the survivors and those grieving the lost on one of our darkest days.
I have injuries on my face, in my arm, and in right knee, and in my left legs from back cast and in all between my hips. So this is Friday, 15th of March. That gunman shooting the people and murdering to the 50 other peoples and then 39 other victims for injuries from the shotgun. Yeah, and I have 9 bullets in my body and what doctor said, and 6 bullets taken with operation from my body, and 3 other bullets is just coming and gone or scratch or touch my body, my body. So, which is doctor said total bullets, 9 bullets on my body.
So you've had 9 bullets hit you?
Yes, hit me.
On March the 15th?
Yes. Yeah, I can see already my future's bright and I'm more different than before because I'm reborn, as I told you, and I don't know how many days passed. But my new birthday, 15th of March, so 2019.
And in news just ahead, the police say they are responding to a critical incident in Deans Avenue, Christchurch.
The news out of Christchurch is not good. There has been a serious firearms incident at a mosque.
Horror in Christchurch this afternoon after shootings at 2 mosques in the city. There are reports of multiple injuries and fatalities.
New Zealand is in shock this morning after yesterday's terror attacks at 2 Christchurch mosques.
Muslims right around New Zealand are being told to pray from the safety of their homes.
One 28-year-old man is to appear in court this morning charged with murder.
We're being schooled, the play was cool. We're being schooled, the play was cool.
March the 15th, 2019 started very differently to how it ended. My name is Logan Church. I'm the South Island video journalist for Checkpoint at Radio New Zealand. On the morning of March the 15th, the big news story of the day was a climate change protest with thousands of students marching around the country. My cameraman, Simon Rogers, and I went down to Cathedral Square just before 1 o'clock to cover the protest in Christchurch.
RNZ News at 1 o'clock. Good afternoon, I'm Paul Brennan. In Christchurch, the protest is just getting underway. Enthusiasm may have been dampened by the rain.
And why are you here today?
Just to protest climate change and get the government to really think that it's a serious issue.
Yeah. What specific things do you think they need to do to make it more serious?
Provide more funding to it and actually really invest time in it and more people.
We got back to the office at about 20 minutes past 1 and we thought that would be the end of our day. But then the phone rang and our bureau chief's cell phone started lighting up with text messages from one of my colleagues who had just gone home for the day. Hi. 15 plus cop cars around the Hagley Park area with guns. We quickly figured out that this was happening near the Deans Avenue Mosque, so Simon and I jumped back in the car. We got here a little bit before 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the Deans Avenue and Riccarton Road intersection, and when we jumped out of the car, one of the first things we noticed was a squad of very heavily armed police officers sprinting through these trees in front of me, hopping into a car and speeding off. At that stage, we still weren't entirely sure what exactly was happening, but then we saw a man walking along this path here. He was wearing a suit, he had no shoes on, he was just wearing his socks. As he walked, he was looking at the ground. He was walking incredibly slowly. He looked absolutely shocked.
Oh, there was around 1:45. I was stopped right. I heard the big sound, the gun, and the second one I heard, I ran. Lots of people were sitting in the floor. There was a lot of people died, injured.
So you saw a whole lot of blood on the floor?
The floor. There's a lot of blood in the floor.
And then another person walks past and tells me that there is a video of what's happened. I didn't believe it, so I opened my phone and I opened YouTube. And I typed Christchurch mosque shooting, because at that stage, that's what we thought had happened. A video came up of a completed live stream. I opened the video and skimmed through it, and I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that it was possible. So I skimmed through it again. And what convinced me that the video was real was actually the number plate on the alleged gunman's car as he opened the boot and took out the guns. At this point, all of the official confirmation we got was that this was a critical incident. That was it. I remember thinking to myself live on air, what on earth do I say? I mean, at that point we knew that dozens of people had been shot and potentially killed, but without any official confirmation, you can't really say that.
RNZ National. Jesse Mulligan with you at 25 past 2. We're just taking a bit of a break from our regular programming here to cover this breaking news. Let's go to Logan Church, RNZ reporter in Christchurch. Hi, Logan.
Kia ora, Jesse. Yes, I'm standing at the Riccarton and Deans Avenue intersection. You might actually hear sirens behind me. We understand a shooting has taken place at a local mosque here in central Christchurch.
At this point, we were about 100 metres up the road from the mosque, and we could see survivors now coming down the footpath and down the road. Men, women and children all looked shocked, many crying. Many were on the phone to loved ones to try and see if they were okay. And while all this was happening, ambulances and police cars were coming up and down this road, up and down constantly, transporting those injured to Christchurch Hospital about 2 minutes that way. And across the road, a group of survivors gathered trying to figure out what was happening. One man there had blood all over his hands.
We was praying, and there's one guy here, just we hear like a kind of bang in the masjid. After that, we don't know what we thought it's electric fault, and after that, we just another maybe less than half minute, we still hearing the same sound. It's like machine gun. So we all run away. We jump. Some of them jump from the window. Some of them he just stuck in there and being shot by that guy. He's wearing black and helmet. and I just jump from the window. I go in the back of the masjid, and I just hold there until the machine gun stopped. While I'm there, I just calling 111, and I was with them in the phone, which they was hearing the machine gun as well. So I jumped in the neighbors of the masjid to hide up there because he started shooting from outside the masjid, and I was worried about my mother. So when I call my mom, she told me she's in the back. So
is she okay?
She's
your mother? Oh, you're okay. And you've got blood on your hands.
I have the guy of that lady. He been shot in his back, in his back of his leg. So I just stopped the blood being bleeding, and when I see him start shooting outside the masjid, I just run away and jump from the fence to the neighbor.
But if that was bad enough, we then heard about Linwood.
Witnesses say the shooting at the Linwood Islamic Centre lasted for 3 or 4 minutes. Shoaib Ghana was there. He told our reporter Conan Young what happened.
We were praying. In the middle of prayer, we heard multiple gunshots from outside. I thought something's happening. We didn't really bother. But our brother, in between the prayer, went to see outside the window, and he said someone's firing towards the mosque, or something like that. Someone's firing. And then we still didn't break the prayer because it's really important to be in the prayer. But suddenly, from the window, the glass broke and one gunshot come inside.
As the hours wore on, this area actually filled up with people, whether they were residents trying to get home, commuters trying to move across the city, or parents trying to get their kids out of school, which were obviously all in lockdown still at that stage. But we heard so many rumours from people here. Some people told us that the hospital was under attack. Some people told us that there were gunmen running rampant throughout the city. I remember one woman telling me that there were car bombs everywhere and she was too afraid to drive in case her car was a bomb. That sounds absolutely stupid and ridiculous now, but at the time it sounded perfectly reasonable. I mean, everyone was terrified. As the night continued, the sheer scale of what actually happens began to emerge.
RNZ News at 5. The police have confirmed a number of people were killed. RNZ News at 6. The police are unable to say how many people have been killed. News at 8. The Prime Minister has confirmed at least 40 people have died in the 2 shootings in Christchurch. RNZ News at 9. More than 20 are in Christchurch Hospital with serious injuries.
I remember going home at about midnight, but I don't think anyone in the city slept that night. The following day, people were still trying to figure out exactly what had happened. The Muslim community were gathering at Hagley College. Armed police guarded every single entrance to the school. The Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, arrived in Christchurch at about the same time.
It was an important opportunity for us to share the grief of New Zealanders directly with those who have experienced so much loss. Many of you will have been there and know that the discussion firstly acknowledged that this is not the New Zealand that any of us know.
But it was at Hagley College where I met the most incredible young man, Mohammed Abdul Halim. He lost 4 close friends in the attack.
My dad was fine, he was unhurt. And so is my brother. My mum was shot on the arm, and thankfully she is making a good recovery, and she has been discharged from hospital and now is present with the rest of the community behind us here at the Hagley College.
You lost some close friends though as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I have. I lost a number of my very, very close childhood friends. All very, very good men. 3 of them had young families, and we were all raised together here as immigrants from about 25 years ago. Most of us went to Christchurch schools and Canterbury University, and all of us were law-abiding, good citizens, that family people that had no malice and no aggression and nothing but love for this country. Sorry.
You are New Zealanders.
We sure are.
You are New Zealanders.
Of course we are, and we're proud of it, and we've shown a great deal of support by everybody here. and it's been really good. We just want our loved ones back now. We want to lay them to rest. We want to bury who needs burying, and we want to look after the injured and the sick.
At the same time, the Christchurch City Council were asking people to leave flowers and other tributes outside the Botanic Gardens along Rolleston Avenue. We went there not long after that announcement, and over the coming hours and days, that wall grew and grew and grew. A line of flowers turned into an absolute sea of flowers, news media taking up every available space in front of it. Thousands of people coming down to pay their respects, any fear of gathering in a public place completely gone.
We just need to come and mourn. We need a place to come and cry and feel the love and the support. The overwhelming strength that we're feeling from here. It's amazing.
It's just a shock it happened in New Zealand because you just didn't think it would ever happen here. It's just like unbelievable, really. It's terrible.
Over the following week, checkpoints met many of the people who lost loved ones in the attacks. Among them was Hanan Al-Adim, who lost her husband, Dr. Amjad Hamid, a cardiologist who had worked at Christchurch Hospital for 20 years. She was in transit at Melbourne Airport when she heard about the attacks. She spoke to Checkpoint's host, Lisa Owen.
After I did my booking and everything, someone was doing a survey about the duty-free in Melbourne, and I said, oh, look, I didn't have the chance. I just finished arranging for my trip to Christchurch. And she said, oh, you are in our thoughts, and we really feel for you. And I said, why? What happened? And she told me about what's happened, and that's when I got worried. I called my son, and he said, Mom, we're okay, we're fine, don't worry, everyone is okay. And I said, okay, fine, I've just finished my booking, and I will arrive at that time. Because I tried to call Amjad and he didn't answer. I called him first and he didn't answer. And I don't know, something was, I don't know, I had a strange feeling. So I called him again and I said, where is your dad? And he said that he'd gone to the mosque and that he'd called him 13 times and he didn't answer. And he said, but Mom, don't worry. I'm sure he will be busy, helping the injured people. And that's when I, started to feel something is not right, because I haven't heard from him. I tried to call him, he didn't answer. I messaged him, he didn't answer, and so that's when I heard about it. I heard about it in Melbourne when I was waiting for my flight to Christchurch.
And when did you know that he wasn't going to be coming home?
Actually, when I arrived in Christchurch, Amjad's niece and her husband, with my boys, they picked me up from the airport, and I asked to go straight to the mosque because I wanted to make sure that he wasn't there. I went there to look for his car, but of course the area was, cordoned. We couldn't have access. So I walked along the side, in the park to look for his car. I couldn't see it. I know the spot that he always parked his car in. It wasn't there, and I thought maybe he didn't go to the mosque, but I had doubts, but where else would he be? So I had a call from a friend. She asked me where I was, and she said, I thought of you. I don't know why I thought of you. They didn't know that he was there also. She said, because she was calling all the people from the community, to check on everyone. And I told her that he was in the mosque, and she said, and I told her that I would go to the hospital to check. She asked me to go to Hagley College because there was a gathering there. There were
the imams and things were gathering. The imams and things were gathering at the college.
The community, to discuss what's happened and what's going to happen. And so I went there, and Amjad's niece, she's a lawyer. She spoke to one of the policemen who were there, and she asked about the injured people. And so he told her that all the injured people they had a list of all the injured people in the hospital, and she said, "But Auntie, we saw that list, and Amjad's name is not on the list." That's when I thought that
you knew.
Yeah, I felt that he's not coming back.
Within weeks, worshippers were allowed to return to the mosques, but for some it wasn't easy. My colleague Alex Perrottet spoke to one man, Abdul Rahman, after he returned to the Al Noor Mosque.
You know, that incident of that day is just still fresh in my mind. And when I came here, actually I came here on Saturday when the mosque was open to the public with my son, and we did a small prayer inside. And now, this is the first time for me to come this area from the door which I managed to escape. Yeah, and it's. Yeah, I don't have words. I just feel that everything is all, fresh. Everything is happening, is still happening. Yeah.
What was that prayer that you prayed on Saturday?
Just Thanksgiving. We thanked the Almighty that, for me, I'm alive, and we prayed for the people who have departed, those were shot and dead, and those who are still recovering in the hospital.
While some had mental scars, others were not so lucky and had serious physical wounds. 2 weeks after the attack, we met Al Sinawi at Christchurch Hospital. He's 63 years old, and it might be years before he can walk again. He described to us what he saw on the day of the shootings.
But no one is, saying any word. No, it's very calm, and it's I don't know how it happened. Even when he was shooting the people, nobody screamed, nobody say something, or just to show that he is in pain. Just shooting the people, they died when, it's about 50 people died, and, nobody say any word. I don't know how it happened, to be honest with you. I don't think it, we saw movies when, start people shooting, start someone shooting others. You'll find they screaming or, because they are in a severe pain.
But now it's the 15th of April, 1 month since the shootings. Christchurch has changed a lot. Worshippers now fill both mosques again. Flower tributes still wrap around the trees in Hagley Park. Armed police still stand watch over the mosques, although the city seems to have relaxed just a little. But for some people, the events of March 15 are still front and centre. Faisal Sayad works in the central city. He's lived in Christchurch for a decade. He was in the Linwood Mosque when a gunman opened fire. For our interview, he took us up to the top of the building, one of the highest in Christchurch. Looking over a city which has lost so much, he told us what he saw on March 15, and that started with complete disbelief.
It was heartbreaking. It still is heartbreaking. I think a lot of people have moved on, and for me, particularly being there, held up in Linwood, I was in Linwood Mosque. It was just another day for us, and we were standing in the prayers congregation, and then we just heard a shot, and we thought that somebody just acting funny, and maybe have just thrown something against the mosque. We did not think about it could be that to that scale. But when we heard the second one and there was a scream along with it, we felt it was something dangerous.
But the reality turned out to be far darker.
And then the third time when it happened, and one of the brothers, he left the congregation and just wanted to just speak out and see what's happening. And that's the time he screamed out that there's somebody killing our brothers. And that's where there was a panic that got active. And everybody was on their knees. There were still people who were praying. There was one of the brothers who was just in his prayers, and this gunman did not know where to come from. I think that he got confused with the entrance because we've got one door which is sealed, and there's a back door that people come from. So he was just shooting from left, right, and center, and that's where this brother was standing to his left-hand side, and he was just behind me, and then he got headshot, and that's where he fell on the ground, and because it was coming from left, right, and center, we were just on the knees, and the volume of the brothers assembled into one corner, pretending that we are safe, but we were not, of course, because we were thinking that this gunman is going to come anytime and start doing, his shooting. Fortunately, when he was coming in, there was one brother who saw him, and he threw FBOS machine onto him, and that's where he got confused. He dropped the gun, and he ran after it. There was a self-defense that was done, and so forth, and that's how he ran away. I could see my brothers just there and falling on the floor. I had a mind blank, and it seemed that it is clear, but still, you're thinking about escaping, and you're thinking about, how can you take others. I had my dad here as well, and he was visiting here, and he had a flight just after 1 week. So I had my father, and I had my other friend as well, who was very close to me. So we all three were together, and just had this mind freeze and just be looking at each other.
But it was the feeling of complete helplessness which proved to be the most debilitating.
I've seen my death this close. I've seen friends falling on the floor, seeking for help, but I've never found myself so helpless ever in my life, as much as I did on that day. I didn't see the gunman personally, but one of my friends saw it, and he knew that he was in camouflage. He had a helmet and whatnot, and then as soon as he left, obviously the forces were in, the emergency forces were in, and they were almost similar dress, so we all freaked out, like, what's going to happen? Is it similar? Is it, the same? Are they going to shoot us too? So there was a moment where all of us were freezed, and it was an reassurance to us that, hey, it's the emergency forces, you're all safe, everything is okay. And that's the time everybody started crying and screaming and yelling and trying to help each other. Was quite bitter. It was quite bitter. Something that I would never even want to think about, really. It's a memory that everybody wants to erase from their life and journey. But I think from the ones who has touched it as close as myself, it is going to be very hard to change it.
While Faisal hasn't been physically injured, some around him were not so lucky. At this point, we took a break in our interview and looked out over the city. Below, we could see commuters starting to fill up the city streets, children playing in the parks, never-ending Christchurch construction work. It's a city Faisal loves, but it's not a city he can share with some friends anymore, including one man who wouldn't stop praying when the shooting began.
He just continued praying, and believe it or not, he was just there, he was standing, and I really don't know in regards with why he was doing what he was doing, but I think it's the faith that made him do what he did, and I think you really need to be brave to do that, and to continue your prayers and have the faith in Lord, and that you'll be okay. I don't know whether he accepted that it is what it is, or he was so engrossed and focused on his prayers that he didn't realize as to what's happening. I just can't comment that. But he's definitely left a big void in the community, and in the families and friends. He was a very close friend of us.
1 month on, Faisal says there are many challenges the local Muslim community faces. One of those is security.
Moving forward, I guess people are looking at in Christchurch. A lot of people, of course, would be very, very skeptical about what's happening in regards with security. People who are directly impacted by it or indirectly impacted, they have apprehensions about how safe they are. Okay, I don't doubt that we've got immense amount of security right now deployed everywhere around Christchurch, but that fear is always going to be there. There are a lot of people, it's unfortunate, they're not coming for prayers because they're still afraid that we can't go there, and if we go there, we will have the recollection of the day. and it'll trigger the trauma and feelings that they don't want to be in.
But another issue is money. When we last checked, the total amount donated to victims was reaching close to $20 million across multiple funds. But at this stage, most hasn't been distributed. Faisal is part of one of the committees involved in figuring out how to distribute the money.
There are families out there, for them, financial support, basic things like grocery and all of that, scale like getting the immigration done for their families and to expedite the process and ease out the process is the few things that will make a lot of difference. A lot of people are unknown of the fact because they're not in a constant active touch with media right now, but there's a lot of things happening behind the scene, and a lot of people will have apprehensions and anger as well as to why the money has not been deployed yet. But every system has you need to follow the right procedures. This is what is happening with this as well. Yes, we've got the funds now. How are we going to be deploying that funds to, and how equally and how fairly, and who's going to decide all of that? So the leaders of the community are definitely working very hard and behind the background.
But in the end, for Faisal, what is needed is simple.
We just need to be making sure that we take a stand onto hate speech, into anything that is not fair. Okay, and just make sure that we do our bit of peace and unity, I guess.
Peace and unity. One of the most well-known examples of that following the shooting is that wall of flowers beside the Botanic Gardens.
The evening of the day when the atrocity happened, we talked about where we dedicate, for flowers to be taken. We wanted to have a place that was easily accessible, and so it wasn't difficult to decide on Rolleston Avenue, just outside the Botanic Garden wall. It's close to the hospital as well, so, and quite close to Al Noor Mosque, so we wanted a central place where people can come and pay their respects, but also give the support, lay flowers if they wish, and other tributes. I mean, to me, it's, yes, it's a sad thing, because of what's happened as part of it, but it's also so heartening that so many people are supporting Christchurch, supporting the Muslim community, but also supporting New Zealand, because there are people flying in from abroad to see this wall and to bring their offerings, and I think that's just fantastic.
That's Wolfgang Bopp, who runs the Botanic Gardens. But that sea of flowers has now withered and died. Cards, art and soft toys dirty from the rain. Fallen leaves building up over the tributes.
Yeah, what we're now doing is we're actually taking the oldest tributes away, concentrating on the flowers in particular. And what the team is doing is taking those in crates across to a sorting room. We've got a room in the Arts Centre they're kindly letting us use, and there we're actually separating out the cellophane wrapping, all the messages. All the flowers are going to be composted, and then we've got that compost available for the Muslim community. They might want to use it in the two mosques in their gardens there, or for another purpose. So once the compost is ready, we will then make that available to them.
Dozens of garden staff and volunteers are here sourcing, carrying and cataloguing the tributes. However, Wolfgang says they're still coming.
It's very symbolic, and to be honest, that's one reason why we're keeping some of it. So the wall, part of the wall behind here, we're keeping the dedications on the wall itself at the moment, and some of the freshest flowers we're moving there, because people are still bringing tributes, they're still bringing flowers. Yesterday I was talking to 2-3 parties, and it was the first day back in Christchurch, or maybe they were from Christchurch, now moved away and come back to actually see friends and family here and see the tribute wall as well. So we're going to keep that going for a while, because while the interest is there and while people want to offer, we just feel we want to have that in place.
39 people who were hit by bullets during the attack survived. While some have been discharged from Christchurch's hospitals, others are not so lucky. One of those is Tamal Atachuju. He's at Bearwood Hospital. He's here for rehabilitation. And just a warning, this interview contains some distressing content.
I have injuries on my face and my arm, and then right knee, and then my left legs from back cast, and then all around between my hips. So this is Friday, 15th of March, that gunman shooting the people and murdering to the 50 other peoples, and then 39 other victims, injuries from the shotgun. Yeah, and I have 9 bullets in my body, and what doctor said, and 6 bullets taken with operation from my body, and 3 other bullets is just coming and gone, or scratch or touch my body, my body. So, which is doctor said total bullets, 9 bullets on my body.
So you've had 9 bullets hit you?
Yes, hit me.
On March the 15th?
Yes.
Tamel is now trying to regain control of his arms and legs. He talked me through how he got these injuries, which will leave large scars all over his arms, legs and face. Some of his teeth are also shattered due to a bullet going through his lip.
First shot is come my face, because when I heard the sounds outside, few shotguns sounds coming, bang, bang, and then of course people stopped, because we were listening Khutbah Friday, which is Imam prayers, is make a speech and telling about, advising about the life from the Quran, or messages from the God, Allah. So of course when we listen that, when sounds coming, everybody stop, try to understand what's going on. And when me too, of course, when I look at, I see the gunman in targeting, and then I see when his smoke coming out from gun, because I've been in army, and I know that he's targeted, and I see the eyes to him. So I understand he targeting me, but he shot already, and I feel the deep pain. But same time, I think this is my muscles closed when it's touched. In a way, find out all this side of the face is broken, and bullets was stayed here, and they take it out. We stand up, and then I see that he's doing serial shooting. So of course, all coming to the legs too, but I didn't notice because of adrenaline, I think. And it's like everything slow motion, like a Matrix movie. I feel that all like a bullets coming, and that was a little bit emotionally. And then I was shocked and surprised, and I tried to understand what's going on. And at the same time, run away from the shooting area, because he's coming through the hallway from the gate.
But it didn't stop.
I feel shooting on behind my legs, and then 2 or 3 more shots I feel on my arm too. And I just praying, and people's crying. Of course, every time when he's shooting outside, less sounds coming. And then the worst part is also top of me and behind of me is I see the people's, I feel that the big shot is coming there too. Bang, bang, bang. And head explode, of course. I don't want to say this but to the public, but, brain and blood's all licking me. And then I said, no, please, enough. And then I don't remember after that, but I think he stopped and he's gone after that, because I can't hear any more sounds. Behind me, the sounds stop. Top of me, no more sounds. All around me, the people, I can't hear any other sounds. They are alive. And I was thinking, am I alive or am I dead? I don't know too. I pull myself, and then I look at my legs. I have a brand new jeans, brand new nice tops, and lots of holes, lots of ripped. I said, what's going on here? I wear the new jeans. Why this is all hole? Now I look at what's happened to my arm? I wasn't sure, I was shocked. Am I dead or am I alive? And then I tried to be pulling out and then pull my lift out, this arm too. I can't because of the broken and it's like a jelly bean, like that. I realized that I'm alive when I'm crawling out, and then I look at myself, and then when I test that smoke from the gun, the powder is too much, too much shooting, so make it too much smoke inside after the gun smoke, and I test, and then I feel hurt. I said, I'm alive, but I'm very bad injured. And I can't spit out the, blood from when because I realized it's all broken too. I said, oh my God, I lost my face. I was thinking, because I have a shot and I was thinking explode and then this is all missing. I was thinking. But luckily it didn't happen. It's just stay in my bones and my teeth, I believe it, Allah saved my life, because it's one line between death to stay alive. I think it's Allah hands is to the same, like, hang on a minute, you have still do something in this earth.
Tamel was eventually rushed to Christchurch Hospital, but there things got even harder.
Sometimes somebody dropped the bottle, make a bang sound and make me, what's going on, and it's screaming and telling, make me grumpy. And mentally, I'm really affected that time. And then I'm still affected, I'm very quick, grumpy to people. I'm very frustrating very quickly. It's quite affecting, It's not easy. Big trauma for myself, for my body, and people around me too. And then lots of pains that time, And then I thinking people's on purpose coming and hurt me, feel like that. Even nurses, I was thinking they're gonna try to kill me. The first week I was thinking. Then, of course, after that, they put me one side room. They find a small room by myself, privacy. And I can't sleep too. I couldn't sleep very well too. And they put me there, and then that night I slept like a baby, quiet, not much visitors. They control the visitors. Even my own brothers, they're not allowed to get in, because when I sleep, they don't want to disturb me. And how long I can sleep, that much easy for mentally help me and recovery faster too.
There are still many obstacles ahead, one of those being work. Tamel is not just an employee, he is also an active business owner.
One day we made decision with my best friend to open a kebab shop, and now I'm kebab shop owner. Ottoman Turkish kebab. Next to make a little bit advertising here. Corner of the Tuam Street, Colombo Street, Ottoman Turkish kebab. We are the best. Forget the rest.
Has what's happened impacted your work much?
At the moment, we share business, and my best friend is the sharing half, and he is looking after the business. I'm employer and employee too. Same. I used to work 50 hours full time there, also too, but now he has to work for us double time. I mean, he's working longer than normal hours what he's supposed to do it. So, and he's managing the business same time for us.
Do you see yourself back at work anytime soon?
Inshallah. I want to work, of course. I want to work, but how much is I'm allowed to do, we will see. I don't know. I can't tell exactly when, but I want to be like a normal person too, as soon as possible.
He was eventually transferred here to Burwood Hospital a bit over a week ago. Here it is quieter, and Tamel is starting to regain control over his body. Every day those wounds are just a little bit less painful, those memories a little easier to deal with. 1 month ago today, Tamel was trying to figure out if he was alive or dead, his arms and legs useless. But now, 1 month on, Tamel is walking again. He is slow and he can't raise his hands when he walks, but he can now walk around the hospital.
Every day I added on. I did lots of practicing for recovery. So I'm a little bit stubborn man, and I'm competitive also. As soon as possible, I try to my muscles back again, and then I want to use my hands again like a normal time. I know it won't be 100%, but how much I can improve, I will do. I will do how much I can do for myself to do proper using my hands and arm.
But for Tamel, March 15 will be a day he will never, ever forget.
I can see already my future's bright, and I'm more different than before because I'm reborn, as I told you, and I don't know how many days passed. But my new birthday, 15th of March, so 2019.
RNZ News at 7. Good evening, I'm Susanna Leatawa. The US journalist who broke the story about the New Zealand nurse kidnapped by Islamic State says that at one point it was demanding about 20 million euros or $33 million for her return. 62-year-old Louisa Arkavi was abducted in October 2013 in the Syrian city of Idlib. RNZ and other news media have agreed for years not to publicise her capture, lest it put her in further danger. But the International Committee of the Red Cross made it public today. It says now that the last IS strongholds are falling, it has decided to publicly seek information. Rukmini Kalimachi of the New York Times says at one point a proof-of-life video of Ms. Arkavi was released to authorities during ransom negotiations in 2014.
Initially, the captors